Hello and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We're glad you're here. Thank you for taking a moment out of your day to stop and spend a few minutes with us. We thought today, as it was New Year's Day, that we'd talk for a minute or a few minutes about New Year's resolutions. Every year, lots and lots of people make New Year's resolutions, and we're trying to we're having a little technical issue. Sorry.
I think we're good now.
Yeah, we think we're good now. Anyway, every year, lots of people make New Year's resolutions, and depending on what statistics you read, by about mid-January, a good 80% or so of people have abandoned those. And so, because we know that most of those New Year's resolutions are about health, and many times it's about exercise and weight loss and such things, we thought we'd talk about our thoughts on what kind of New Year's resolution might encourage one to keep with it well beyond January, February, March, and make it a lifestyle, just like the Fast 5 lifestyle is a lifestyle. And to do that, our suggestion is, if you have already made your New Year's resolution, then consider possibly refining it. And if you haven't, then we have an idea, and that is to separate the goal from the process. Let the goal that you set for your New Year's resolution be a measure of outcomes, but not the commitment. The commitment that we suggest is committing to a process of self-care, of trusting whatever strategy you put in place to achieve your goals for the year. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree. And so what we're talking about is if your goal is, say, to lose weight, you're not making your resolution to get to that weight. Your resolution is to the process that gets you there, and that can be either a commitment to a particular fasting schedule, or it can be a commitment to adding exercise or something like that. But it is that process that gets you there that we're encouraging you to commit to. And that's the kind of thing that you have to remember every day to keep it fresh and in your mind. The goal is out there somewhere, and if by February or March you haven't reached it, you may feel like, oh, I'm never going to get there. Mm-hmm. But if on every day your commitment is to keep your schedule or to keep your exercise regimen, we're talking about just showing up and doing that each day, so that it's one day at a time, and it keeps it fresh and in your head, and doesn't just kind of fade away because it's maybe the goal feels too far away.
Well, and also, if the goal is to keep with the process, or to commit to trying to do something, then the process means being a human person working to achieve a goal. And that means that there'll be slips, just like we talked about the Sandy Hill last week. But what happens so often with a New Year's resolution is that one mistake, one slip up, and a person very commonly says, I have failed to achieve my resolution. I resolved to do something 100% of the time, every single day of this year. That's a big bite to take on any day of any year. And so if instead one were to say, I have several goals this year, and write them down even. These are my goals. But my commitment, my resolution, is to work systematically toward those goals, trusting a process that I have come to rely upon. Let's say it's sticking with a healthy tribe. And so as you're starting to pursue a goal and you start to slip, remembering to check in with those that you trust, check in with those that share your goals and are working toward the same things, or giving yourself the gift of self-love, talking to yourself, walking, breathing, working through the steps that it takes to live a whole, full life. That becomes something that's achievable because it, in part, doesn't require perfection. And there's no such thing as failure, because The only failure is to decide no longer to work through the process. It's not doing the process perfectly. Yeah.
And the elements of the process, like activity, are healthy in themselves. And so
Right.
whatever you can do is better than letting it go completely. So if you get to a point where you miss it, or you've gone some time and it starts to fade away, it is still important to get back to it. You don't beat yourself up for doing it. It's just getting back to what you know works. And what do we know works? We know intermittent fasting works. And recent articles have confirmed this, that benefits are much more than just weight loss. And we know that activity is essential for health. And so if you can just keep your commitment, your lifestyle, to make those things a part of your lifestyle, then you are guiding yourself to better health. And that's what we're encouraging.
I was looking at a comment over here. Have friends who should see this video. Share with them so they can watch too. I have to say, there are friends that do need to see this video, and I say that because I see that Facebook told us that. I'm kind of feeling a little duped for the moment, but at any rate, reaching out to friends, sharing your goals with them, but more importantly, sharing your process and committing that being human, being imperfect, stepping away from the process for a moment, but then going back to your tribe to help get encouragement, sustenance, support, hope, love, all the things that a community brings to us. Those things will get us back when we feel ourselves slipping. And so I guess, I don't want to belabor this, but in creating a New Year's resolution, setting the goals as the way we measure whether or not we're sticking with the process is an act of self-love. It is almost having like a trust relationship with ourselves. If we set goals or create a resolution that we feel fairly confidently we're going to abandon very quickly, then we're kind of it's just a game. But if one is truly trying to improve one's health, one's well-being, one's life, then committing to a process and taking steps to stick with that process as often as possible, even if not perfectly, then really becomes an act of self-love. And that's what we're encouraging for today's first day of 2020, or 2020, I guess, as most people say.
And it's also important to note that in years past, the tools for achieving your goals have been rather poor. In fact, people have committed to exercising to lose weight. We know that doesn't work very well. And in fact, for some people, it doesn't work at all. And choosing to eat less is really a very challenging way to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have some tools that actually work. And so if we can commit to using those tools, it has a much greater chance of success than people were facing in years past. And it's perfectly understandable that resolutions have acquired sort of a reputation for, well, you're lucky if they last till March. And so looking back, we can see that, but looking forward, 2020 and beyond, we've got some powerful tools to work with that may change resolutions from being a thing that quickly fall aside to something that we can stick with and make ourselves healthier people, support our healthy tribe, and be a part of a healthy tribe.
It's interesting because you talked about the tools, and one of the things that makes me think about is, achieving appetite correction. I mean, this is our group. We talk about this a lot, obviously, is something that happens for some people after a while of doing intermittent fasting. It's not always right away. And before one achieves appetite correction, there is this need for again, exercising some willpower. Eventually, willpower is not the thing that you need, but early on in the game, early on in the exercise of working to achieve appetite correction, it can happen. And I remember reading something this week about one of the steps that one can take to increase their willpower. And I was a little surprised. And it was meditation. And what studies have shown is that just 5 minutes of meditation a day can encourage one. I mean, it has the outcome of increasing one's willpower. One makes better choices after just 5 minutes of meditation a day. So last week we talked about giving yourself the gift of self-care, and meditation and connecting with breathing was one of those tips that this particular author had mentioned. And so again, if that also confers the benefit of increasing one's willpower, then between the time of adopting an intermittent fasting lifestyle and achieving appetite correction, when one has to exercise a little bit of that, it's nice to know that there's a way that not only gives one some self-care, but also helps to increase willpower at the same time. So that's just another thought as you're developing your process or deciding what process you'll commit to for the new year and for the years beyond. It's something to put into your toolbox and consider as one of the possibilities. I see that Nicole is watching. We appreciate I just barely cut myself off before saying last names. Anyway, thanks for being with us. We appreciate that. And so anyway, that's our New Year's resolution talk. We'll go from there to some questions that have come up in the group this week. But before we do that, we'd like to take just a pause and offer some gratitude to Paula in particular, who started this group back in 2012. She did that. She talked to us about it and did all the polite things of, is it okay? And of course it was okay. One can do pretty much whatever they want in this world as long as it doesn't step on, as long as it's respectful of other people. But she did that extra step of talking with us about it. She started the group, took that brave step. She and Angela were being support buddies, and she started the group. And that to us was a big, brave step. In 2012, the notion of starting a Facebook group was way beyond something that we would have considered. And she worked tirelessly to manage and build the group. And when it was time to step aside for a while, she graciously offered us the opportunity to manage the group and gave it to us with training wheels. She said, here's a communication vehicle. I've worked to build this. Would you like it? And I won't go away. I'll help when you need help. I'll still provide support. And I noticed this week that Paula, once again, as so often she has, stepped in and gave us a gentle nudge in some ways to connect with the community. And so I would like to share her question first. Paula said, in her own words, she created the group back in December 2012 with a hope to gain knowledge and find support from fellow intermittent fasting individuals like Angela. She and Angela were practicing the lifestyle before intermittent fasting was cool. And indeed, Paula, you and Angela sure were. And you have been tried and true and very, very helpful individuals who have nudged us along to do the things that we've done. Sometimes we prefer to shrink into the background a bit, and thank you for giving us the nudges when we needed them. At any rate, the question that Paula posed to the group this week was, what needs do you hope to get met within the confines of this fasting group? Knowledge, accountability, camaraderie. I know a number of you have answered the question, and we would invite all of you to continue to do that, because it is helpful to know what the goals are here of individuals who are participating in this group. And thank you, Paula. Thank you, Angela. Thank you so many people who have been part of the framework, the backbone, and the support that keeps this Facebook group going.
Your encouragement to others is something we really appreciate. And
Yeah.
we thank you all for supporting each other and for sharing your experiences and for providing the insights that you have. It helps everybody do a little bit better, and that's been great. So thank you.
Yeah. And one other thing is that you have also offered kindness and modeled kindness and have helped us when there was the rare, quite frankly, quite rare, unkind comment to let us know where that is so that we can address that. And without that kind of support, this group wouldn't be close to as amazing as it is. And so to the whole community, thank you. And we hope this year is just amazing for everyone. Now, I guess we'll take on a few questions that have been asked this week. I'm going to read them off of our notes. One of those is, what is Dr. Herring's thought about monk fruit sweetener in one's black coffee? Anyone know? I guess the question was to the group, but what is Dr. Bert's thought? And what about Lakanto?
Okay, well, I'll start with the easy one. Lakanto is a brand name like Pepsi or Coca-Cola. So it's just a manufacturer of sweeteners. So Lakanto isn't a sweetener itself. And the other part, monk fruit sweetener, is in the same class as stevia. It's a natural, sweet tasting substances found in fruit and extracted from it and sold as a sweetener. And so the question basically is saying, is it okay to use? And my answer is, yeah, it's okay to use, but I encourage people to concentrate on the other tastes that are present in food and try to get away from wanting everything to taste sweet.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this happens naturally as people start intermittent fasting. Foods start to taste suddenly very sweet and unpleasantly sweet, and we tend to tone that down naturally. But I think it's important to concentrate on that consciously a little bit, to savor the flavors that we taste rather than just going for sweet flavor. And so the reason that there's a really question about it is that there's been some evidence that sweet tastes can trigger an insulin release. The digestive process starts up here in our heads. So as soon as we put something in our mouths, the brain can start the process of digestion, even if nothing happens below the neck. So what happens in one person may not happen in another person. So there's no sort of blanket response that can fit everybody. But what I would say is to minimize the amount of sweeteners that you use, artificial and natural. Get by with as little as you can. And whatever you're using now, try to taper it down even further, because we don't know exactly what all those sweeteners are doing. They may be provoking appetite. They may be provoking some insulin release. Again, it's different from person to person, but if you can get by with none, that's better than using the natural sweeteners, which is better than using artificial sweeteners. So generally, minimize it as much as you can. And if you are going to use a sweetener, the natural ones are preferable to the artificial ones.
Okay? Thanks. Then this next question is one that I like because it truly seems to be one of the most common questions that comes up. And I don't know, I could just push a button and put you on autopilot. So why does Dr. Bert suggest eating 5 to 10 p.m.? I can't find the answer. Curious.
So 5 to 10 p.m. comes from the original book I wrote, the Fast 5 Diet and the Fast 5 Lifestyle, in which I used the schedule of 5 to 10 p.m. as the typical eating window. That was intended to be an example, and I put one little line in there that says you can change it if you want to. It's not.
You should have put that in neon, like flashy.
Maybe on the cover or whatever, because it has been the most frequently asked question since then. And there's a page on the website that handles the frequently asked questions, and it's number 1. So the 5 to 10 is an example window. I use it throughout the book, but with the expectation that it would be shifted to whenever people wanted to have it. And one of the reasons that I favored a later window, like 5 to 10 p.m., was that there would be no time at the end of the window where the window was closed or at least very little time at the end of the window, or it was closed and you had to use willpower to just say no after the window was closed. And that hasn't posed as much of a problem as I expected then. And this was 2005, by the way.
Before the discovery of appetite correction as the outcome. Yeah.
So, but people have had 1 to 6 windows, 3 to 8, even morning windows. And as long as they work and you don't have trouble closing the window and keeping it closed, which some people have, but it varies from person to person, as most things do. And so if you have no trouble with it, an early window is fine, and an afternoon window is fine. It's just whatever fits your schedule best. And usually that's the window that matches with your social times, where you're eating with people, and that can be any time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
My mother's window is 3 to 8, and lots of people have that window. Anyway, hi, Mom. All right, so then there was a question about lipedema, the lipedema, lipedema. And a person that, I don't know if this person has lipedema or not, but asked, did fast or does fast 5 help with lipedema? We don't have personal experience with that in any fast fiber with whom we've interacted. And so we can't draw on any anecdotes for anyone who's lived the lifestyle and had any kind of a change in their lipedema. What we did do was look to the literature, and there are no published studies that we could find that address lipedema and fasting and any outcome. What I found was a paper in a theoretical medical journal. It's a journal that addresses medical theory. It's not a theoretical journal. It's a real journal.
It really does exist.
It exists, right? A paper that was 2014, in which the authors speculated that the mechanism, and it's not known what the mechanism is that causes lipedema, but the mechanism is a vicious cycle that may be started or may be driven by one, estrogen seems to be one of the drivers, the hormone. And the second one is inflammation of the nerves that regulate or send signals to the fat tissue that is under the skin. And this vicious cycle makes these deposits of fat under the skin get bigger and bigger and eventually painful and cause lots of problems. What that brings up is not, if one extends that theory, and it is just a theory, which means it's somebody's best guess based on what they have discovered or have put together from what others have discovered. If one extends that theory to theories about intermittent fasting and the benefits that it confers in the way of decreasing inflammation, because it is a lifestyle that keeps insulin low, and insulin is an inflammatory molecule, then it's not unreasonable to imagine that a lifestyle that keeps insulin low might decrease inflammation, and might, by decreasing the inflammation in the nerves that are involved in driving the vicious cycle of lipedema, may perhaps, and there's a lot of perhapses in here because this is just a guess, may perhaps create what's called a virtuous cycle, which is the opposite of a vicious cycle. Something is improved, it improves something else, that drives further improvement of the first factor, etc. And so if I had any kind of an inflammatory process going on in my body, knowing what I know about intermittent fasting, and particularly for me, the Fast 5 lifestyle, there's no question that I would take it on. I would take it on with vigor and with a confidence that there was a reasonable chance it might improve things. There have been a lot of inflammatory processes among people who live this lifestyle that have allowed them to communicate with us that their problems improved.
Some really major heavy hitter kind of inflammatory problems too. We're talking about things like rheumatoid arthritis, myasthenia gravis, multiple sclerosis, lots of benefits that were totally unexpected that people have reported. And over time, we may see that intermittent fasting may be one of the basic treatment responses to inflammatory diseases, instead of the typical response right now, which is steroids and other medicines.
Other anti-inflammatories, yeah.
Right. Because of its consistency and its power in helping these problems.
So that's really kind of all we have for today. We thought I don't know, are we keeping it short? Not so terribly short. Anyway, keeping it shorter than we did last week. How's that? And we would love for you all to get on with your day, on with your year. We hope it's amazing, both of those. And again, we're incredibly grateful that you invite us into your minutes. I mean, you have precious time, and if you share a few of those with us, then we recognize that as an investment, and we appreciate it.
And thank you. So happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.